think, ladies, it's great because I do feel like I'm a rose in between two very wonderful leaves, not thorns, maybe. I think we'll wait to see a few more attendees come through. So please open the doors. I can see the doors are slowly opening and people are making their way into our venue for the next 60 minutes. Welcome to you all. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes, so you haven't missed out on anything as you see Sharon, Davi and myself on screen. We'll just let the doors open. This is where we need to imagine this now. This is where the imagination in the virtual world is. People are taking their seats now, grabbing a coffee. Yep, those doors are coming through. And as you are joining us, I am going to start slowly saying a great big welcome to you all for joining this seminar this afternoon. We've got some people coming through. This is great. My name is Sam Allen. Just in case you wondered, I'm the one non-association planner in this screen, and I'll be the host for today's discussions with my two wonderful experts, Sharon and Davi, who I will be introducing in a couple of minutes. Our attendees are coming through. Do drop us a little line for anyone who's joining us. Let me know where you're joining us from, because we know we've got certainly a European audience, if not further. So do say hi in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. If you haven't been joining us, oh, hi Philip from sunny Dusseldorf, I would imagine at the moment. Martina in Frankfurt. Boy, have we missed visiting Frankfurt this year. We cannot wait to get back. Oh, Dusseldorf. I've only ever been to Dusseldorf, Philip, when it's been sunny, so sorry that it's not today. Maybe I need to be visiting with you. Christina joining us from Nuremberg. Yeah, we need it cooler because this hour it gets hot when you've got lots of lights on, which we all have in our home studios here. We've got Heike from Stuttgart, so we've got a good German audience. Congratulations so far on your wonderful football performance. Long may that continue. Now, a great big welcome to you all. I'm glad that we've got you here. Please keep that chat coming. This is for you, this session. Jessica, we've got Jessica from Washington. Good morning, Jessica. We should say that to you. Great to have you with us. My name is Sam, and I'm here to host this afternoon's association panel. And this session is part of the GCB, German Convention Bureau's summer campaign, which I'm sure you've all been following. Germany at the heart of future events. Now, the GCB has created this campaign for event organisers who are still unable to travel internationally and who need to find that space to reconnect with the destination, and connection is what this is all about. At the heart of the campaign is the virtual marketplace, featuring close to 70, yes, 70 German partners in a 4-month virtual exhibition. Bravo to this. It is incredible. If you haven't been and explored the platform, please do after our session. I encourage everyone to spend some time, meet some of these wonderful partners. Just to let you know, the session will be recorded and made available in the library in the virtual venue. So anybody who misses it, you can let them know they can come back and watch us on demand. Lucky them. Now, in today's session, we are going to discuss post-pandemic strategies of international associations. Hallelujah, we're at the point where we are discussing post-pandemic strategies. And I'd like to give a great big welcome to the experts you're seeing on your screen. So I would like everyone to give a warm virtual welcome, a nice Zoom round of applause to the CEO at the European Society for Emergency Medicine, that is Davi Cow, and at the moment she's underneath me, and events director at Eurodis, Sharon Ashton. Welcome both. You can unmute yourselves.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you with us. Big smiles, and we've all managed to have good backgrounds as well, so we're all on brand. Now, before we go into our discussions and our introductions of you both, I think it would be really useful for Sharon and Davi to understand what type of part of the industry are you in? So I'd like to launch a poll to ask you, the audience, what part of the sector you are joining us from. So are you an association planner? Are you a corporate planner? An agency, a supplier, or other? I always have to tick the other, so being an MC, moderator, and meeting designer, but it would be really good, and Sharon and Davi will be tailoring their content to make sure that we answer the right questions for you. So if you can please vote, and we can see who is joining us. If we can see the results, that would be incredible. I'll get these popping up. Okay, good. Well, ladies, it's going to be a nice split of conversation here. We have got association planners obviously in our room, so welcome to you, agencies and partners and suppliers. That's great. There's no others. That will just be me then here in the corner. Thank you very much, everybody. As I said, please get those questions in. I will be checking the chat for any of your questions and asking Sharon and Davi those during today. But let's get started and find out a little bit more about our guest today. Sharon, can I start with you, please, and ask you to give us a little bit of background about you and your role and how the past 14 months have been for the association?
Yes, certainly. So I started my career in event management just over 20 years ago. In the US, where I worked for a medical publishing company. So I organized events not only in-house for our own company, but also for clients, which were healthcare corporates. Then back in Europe, we moved to Paris, where I actually lived for 13 years in France. I spent a couple of years with a PCO, professional conference organizer, and then had a little bit of a stint as a wedding planner in Southwest France before selling my agency and coming back to Paris. And since 2010, in fact, I have been working for Eurodis, Rare Diseases Europe, first of all as an event manager and now as events director. And so I head up a small team. We organize some of our flagship events for the organization, including our European conference, our membership meeting, and an award ceremony and fundraiser. And the last, let's say, 14 months have been quite a roller coaster of emotions for a lot of event professionals. I think it really started with panic and fear as we knew that we would have to move our European conference online within 11 weeks of it taking place. So there was a steep learning curve up to that point. Then we had a time of kind of education and educating ourselves before our second event, which was in February of this year. It was our awards ceremony that we moved also online. So we were able to work a little bit from memory and experience of what it was like to pivot our conference. So we had a little bit more experience, but of course, so did the participants. So their expectations had also changed. And then now after that, we're kind of moving to more of the strategy, looking to the future, and mixed emotions there too. But I would say essentially excitement. So
that's good. We're starting off the session positively. I'm really pleased. Thank you for giving us such a good insight. Now, Davi, you've had an interesting 14 months because you're actually newly appointed as CEO at USEM. So can you share your background and experience where you and the team are currently in terms of planning and strategy? in your new job post-pandemic?
Yeah, sure. So just as a background, so I'm actually a biologist by training, and I've entered into events planning over 20 years ago as well, like Sharon, and I used to organise conferences, cancer conferences. Our largest one was for 20,000. And then I've sort of moved into different roles and moved into being the CEO of USEM in April. So where we are at the moment, we are looking forward to our conference in Lisbon. We are looking and we are planning for a face-to-face meeting. That's what we are doing at this stage. Like Sharon, you know, the last 14 months as well with my previous job, we've been in that panic stage of moving from face-to-face to virtual, and now also planning to work where we're going to move forward. And with the Congress, with you saying we're in that stage as well, where we are looking to see what we're going to do in the future. We're moving into hybrid meetings, and you know what a hybrid meeting is going to be like. That's the next thing. After doing virtual meetings, anything's possible. So that's where we're at.
Anything truly is possible. As you said, the last year, it seems that for both your organizations, you have, let's get the word out again, pivoted. And it was more out of necessity to bring your audiences together. Now you're looking at the future, which is great. So in terms of, merging these audiences, the learnings from the pivot and having to, learn as you're going along virtually, what has changed and what does the strategy for your association look like now in terms of the new normal, the next normal, the now normal? Sharon.
So the way that our association are approaching it is to really consider what we're calling a blended learning format or model, meaning that we're really focusing in, as any, meeting designer, we start with the end in mind. So looking at our objectives for our different events, or at least what used to be our main events, and thinking about what the objectives are for that, and looking at the whole spectrum, like across a year, what we propose to our members and the opportunities that they have to get together within their own stakeholder group or across stakeholder groups. And so trying to think forward and thinking, okay, based on this objective for this event, we need to be in person together in a room, or this could be something that we run online, or it could be something that we do as a podcast, more of a broadcast, or, so really looking at all the like I said, a blended learning or model. So we're looking at all of those different things. And I think they will all be in our association's future, including, maybe more use of even infographics and, just looking at the different opportunities out there.
So it's the last 14 months, so COVID has actually really forced a change, would you say, in terms of actually looking at that whole portfolio of communication to your members, the why, I suppose, behind, not just we will go back to events when it's safe to do so.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Davi.
Yeah, I just want to say, what's happened in the last 14 months has been actually quite a big eye-opener, because, with technology becoming cheaper, Zoom, cheaper and easier to do with platforms like Zoom, like Team, it has opened up a lot of possibilities in the way that the societies can connect with their members. It's not the case now that you are, oh, we need to hire a meeting room. Oh, oh, we want to do this workshop. Oh, we will have to rent a place or something like that, or for a one-day meeting per se. You now have the opportunity of doing it virtually and bringing a lot more people into a meeting a lot more people into a discussion than before. So that's really opened up, and the strategy for the societies is to see how we can integrate, as Sharon says, integrate, you know, what we can do virtually with what we can do face to face, because face to face is still important. The physical meeting is still important. Our congresses are, you know, important. We know that our members, you know, want to have physical meetings because, you know, there are a lot of side discussions that go on in these meetings. Innovation, I'm sure we've lost a little bit of innovation because you know, a lot of the best trials have been written on the back of beer mats. So, you know, so it's really important that these people come together and have those discussions. And this is what we're hearing from our members as well, that they're itching to get back into the physical. But we have now a bigger perspective on and broader opportunities on how we engage.
The added addition for us is, you know, we represent the rare disease patient community. So we already represent a vulnerable population. So being able now to more easily provide things online or in a hybrid format is really opening it up to everyone, those who are able to physically travel and those that are perhaps not for either health or financial reasons. So that as well has opened up possibilities for us.
Davi, you were saying about, you know, your member, because an association is no good without its members, right? So, you know, you're both in your roles talking to the membership and hearing. What are you hearing, you know, across the board in terms of delegates' expectations now? Are you seeing that people, you know, are adapting to the virtual hybrid? Are your audiences saying, absolutely, we just want to come together? What are the safety concerns, perhaps, or the confidence concerns your audience and your, you know, not just your audience, your stakeholders are having? I'll start with you, Davi, and then Sharon, please join in.
Well, you know, so for us, you know, people want the option. They want to have the option of virtual and face to face, especially at this stage where we don't know what's going to happen in the latter part of the year. But a lot of our members are really wanting to go back into the physical, because sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours, you know, listening attentively to sessions, it's unrealistic to expect people to do that. I don't think a lot of, you know, we have worked with doctors, you know, so they have other things going on. So, but they want that option because they, you know, they want to be able to access the information that they need, the educational material that they need, so that if they can't travel, they still can be able to listen to the session or take part in the session that they're interested in. So it's a mixed bag. Really, it's really like, yes, we want to meet together, but we would like to still have that option that if we can't, we can still have the info at our fingertips.
Exactly the same for us too. I was going to say, you know, they expect choice now. And I think it's not only choice in how they attend, for example, physically or remotely, but also in how they interact and engage during an event. So some of them like the chat, you know, the written chat. Some are not really at ease to communicate orally. Some of them love the little small group, you know, breakout groups and the polling and the different opportunities that we have. And I know over the past, you know, 14 months, we've developed all of those kind of tools and tricks. But also, you know, online fatigue is there. And so we are having to adapt like the length of our events or our sessions, making them shorter, making them punchier. And I think in future, our members will be more discerning about where they actually do travel. You know, we do have stakeholders from healthcare corporate, so maybe they will have more rules and regulations as well in how much they can travel per year, and they maybe become a little bit fussier about where they go, which brings me on to my last point, which is partly less is more, in as much as we really need to be working on our narratives for these events, putting out there, being more clear about the moral, what is the moral of our story? What is the moral of our event? Because we're not only competing, and in future we'll be competing not only with online, hybrid, face-to-face events, webinars, etc., but also, your latest Netflix series, I guess. So they're just used to all this choice out there. So I think, yeah, a mixture of all those as to what our delegates' expectations are.
Choice is one of those things that I think we've not, choice and in engagement strategies, I'm hearing a lot of people having a lot of conversations about it, which perhaps would also argue that perhaps we weren't really doing enough of that before COVID. And actually it's given us all an opportunity to rethink how our audiences consume the content, how they meet people, how they connect, how, as you said, Davi, how, people change the world, create these incredible trials that really literally do change the world. In terms of that, you were saying, Sharon, with some of the stakeholders, our corporates, pharmaceuticals, there are travel bans still happening. This is if we poll people, and I've got a poll that I'm going to ask shortly. Are you seeing, in terms of your audiences right now, whilst there might be there's a difference between an appetite and booking a flight, without trying to be poetic, for both your audiences, where are they at the moment in terms of the ability to travel? Does that make you consider where you're hosting your events over the short term?
Yes.
Oh,
sorry,
Sharon.
go ahead.
Sharon, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it is. I mean, our events are very international, predominantly European, but also a lot from North America. So for the moment, the simple answer is that we are designing for online. And we are, from next February, so pretty much the rest of this year, we're planning only online, except for maybe very small and perhaps board and strategic seminars. But otherwise, for our bigger events from February of next year, we do hope to get a group of people together for our award ceremony and fundraiser. But we are designing for online. So we have that backup option, let's say, in case of the worst case scenario, yeah.
And Davi, you're in. Lisbon is happening at the moment at the end of this year, right?
End of October.
End of October.
That's what we're going for. Unless there's a third wave, then we have to move back to the virtual. But but at the moment, it's a hybrid conference, and that's what we're aiming for. We think we can do it. We think that borders are opening. Majority of our delegates are coming from Europe. So, and most and like I said, most of the borders are open or are opening, and we expect by the latter part of the year that people will be traveling, and also our delegates are all vaccinated, the doctors, so they're vaccinated.
And that, I think, yeah, that's again going to make, I think we can talk on that. I'd really like to know from everybody joining us today, in terms of travel, we have a poll. When are you planning on traveling internationally for your first in-person programs? Are you already flying or jet setting or training? Are you looking at the next 3 to 6 months, so Q4 of this year, or not until 2022? So if you let us know, it would be great. I certainly have got an in-person, got a couple of hybrid events where I'm going to be in a smaller studio over the coming months. But in terms of international, again, September, Switzerland. But we are preparing for a hybrid and running that. So let's see what our audience are doing. So, okay. In the next 3 to 6 months, the majority of people are planning. Davi, that doesn't surprise you? That ties in with your delegation?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So, yeah, I think, we're confident most people are going to be vaccinated by September. In Belgium, they think that everything's going to be near normal by September. We don't know yet, but near normal with no masks and things like that. It'd be interesting to see, of course, we will have some precautions in the venue, but we will see how relaxed we can make that to go back into the near normal situation of having a face-to-face meeting.
So let's imagine, let's be in a venue, because that's what we're all hoping to do at the end of the day. We want to bring people together. What are the implications now in terms of you and your teams and your job now, bringing in, having that hybrid element, but also in the destination? We've got destination partners online with us. What are your sort of key considerations now with the in-person event, in terms of, you know, the safety, the considerations in terms of your virtual audiences? Start with you, Davi.
Well, for us, you know, I mean, we still probably have to think about having some safe distances. I'm hoping that's not going to be too much issue, but things like, you know, making sure that there are gels and facilities for people to make sure their hands are clean. I'm hoping that we don't need to go to the fact that we have to have masks. That's still a possibility that in the venue we would have to have some masks and some distancing in between in the auditorium. I'm actually hoping that we can really go back to near normal. We see what's happening with the football. We're seeing what's happening with other live events. You know, we're going to have festivals going on, especially in Belgium, big festivals going on where people are going to be in close vicinity. So I'm hoping that that will translate into the venues. But yeah, at the moment we just we have to see, and we have to, you know, make sure we cater. We still cater in some of the pandemic restraints.
Sharon.
Yes, very similar for us in terms of the hand sanitizers and social distancing. I hope that you know, reduces over the coming months. I guess the only additional point is ventilation within the meeting space, etc. And then I think communicating to our participants about what we are putting in place to help them feel safe, but also, I guess, distinguishing between the two experiences and making both experiences as good as each other, but for, you know, different reasons. So I think that is going to be quite a challenge for us moving forward, especially in the hybrid space.
In terms of the hybrid space, so everybody, you know, we're saying there's a really good opportunity, and that seems to be sort of an industry-wide thing. There's a great opportunity for bringing bigger audiences, becoming more inclusive, you know, considerations not just about whether people could travel because of the vaccine situation, it's sustainability, inclusivity. Some people just don't want to go to an event, but they want to be part of that community. What implications does this have when it comes down to the new B word, which is budgeting? Because I'm sure that we've got people who are from both supply side and from planning side sort of sitting there now with the spreadsheet going, right, what does this look like? Sharon, you're smiling. I'm going to start with you. This must be fun times with the budgeting.
It is, and we've actually got into a habit now of, whenever we're planning an event, to come up with different scenarios, and we provide scenarios including the corresponding budgets to our board members so that they, you know, they have all the information they need to be able to make that decision. I think the other thing for us is moving forward, you know, that there's a lot of buzzwords. You know, we've talked about hybrid, and it sounds very scary. And I think it is still very scary, but it really depends how you define that. Because, for example, our European conference next year, which will be online in May, you could consider it a hybrid event, in as much as we're stretching it. So it's usually a 2-day event if it's a physical event, but we're stretching it over a week, only proposing half days. And probably the first and last days, we will have small studios, but only for our keynote speakers and facilitators, our professional facilitators. Everybody else will be online, and the 3 days in between will be fully online. So I think it also depends how you define hybrid, for example, and how you approach that. But yes, in terms of budgeting, it is tricky, but it's also an opportunity, I think, for us to be a little bit more creative. for our event next February, which is a fundraiser, as I said, but also an award ceremony. You know, we had much more participation online. We had much more awareness raising, and they are part of the objectives of that event. So bringing people physically together, we're looking at different ways. You know, it is a free event online, so the budgeting, you know, is affected there. We're not necessarily having seat sales when it's an online event. So making that a hybrid brings back that those seat sales that we can sell, and having different experience levels. So not only the people that just connect online for free, but also kind of an in-between situation too, where we're going to have what we call like a supporters wall, where we'll actually see them physically on the screen. And so it's that in-between kind of format, and that just gives us a little bit more kind of scope for creativity in the revenue kind of side of it. What we have seen in terms of expenses is that, of course, online is more, in terms of direct costs, it is more cost effective. So we do have to be thinking about that in future, and the implications not only for, you know, venues and other places like that.
I think the H word, a lot of people, I was talking to 90 corporates last week, and I think I asked everybody, there were 20 in the room, and said, you know, anyone stand up who, when you hear the word hybrid, doesn't think expensive? And no one stood up, because that's the fear factor. I think a lot of organizations, be it associations, because you're having to be even more careful with your membership money and your partners' money. Davi, from the experience that you're having planning through, are things changing as in how you're spending the money within the venue versus the, you know, the technology, or what you would have done before by bringing in this new audience in terms of revenue and, of course, costs?
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference. You know, you need extra technical, you know, equipment to be able to have that link between the virtual and the face-to-face. You know, we will be beaming in some of our speakers from, for instance, from the US, those that can't travel. That's a new thing we haven't done before. And then, you know, having that connection, like Sharon was saying, where the audience, virtual audience, can ask questions at the same time as the audience sitting in the auditorium, and even the people sitting in the auditorium being allowed to ask questions without standing up. You know, we've seen that in the virtual, that we get a lot more questions from people because they don't want to stand up and ask. So yeah, there are changes, you know. There are things for the venue as well, in terms of having the capacity to be able to do the virtual hybrid side of it. You know, I know venues that haven't had the capacity even for Wi-Fi. You know, discussions of trying to get Wi-Fi into a venue, and it's been extortionate. So, and you know, and then it hasn't worked completely, when we get complaints and things like that, and you know, and then so having the facilities within the venue is really important. It'd be interesting to hear from venues in terms of how they are adapting with the new technology, and how they are helping us to be able to facilitate these type of hybrid meetings. You know, are costs coming down? Have they got the right equipment to be able to do that, to have enough connections? You know, we could potentially be looking at, instead of having overflow screens, that people could use their iPad and have the sessions live streamed to them while they're sitting having their lunch in the venue. You know, all these things are there, and those are the types of discussions we're having. So it'd be interesting just to see how venues have changed the way that they are looking at hosting this hybrid format.
If we have any venues with us, which I'm sure we do, we would love to hear from you. Pop into the chat some of the changes, some of the innovations that you may be having, because it's definitely a partnership in terms of the supply chain and the planner in this new world. In terms
what would
of
actually be really helpful for us is to think about not only the venue itself, and this is maybe where the convention bureaus could come into play too, is to have your kind of the door-to-door, let's say, safety aspect. So once we do land in your city or something, okay, what do you have in place in the airport? How safe is it and how can we get to the airport, from the airport to the hotel? If, you know, the conference venue is somewhere different, you know, what is the things in place that you can get to the venue? You know, restaurants, you know, people, if they're staying several days, they need to eat places, not necessarily always in the convention center or wherever. So having that information readily available, and like I say, if it's not the venue, it could be the convention bureau, but that would be, you know, really helpful to have and would help us to be able to make the decision and then communicate to our participants about it.
We've been talking about hybrid, but interestingly that you bring that point, it brings it round quite nicely to other formats that, you know, that are being considered at the moment. And one of those is multi-hub, probably called various things in various parts of the world, because we do like to complicate the world by creating industry craziness. But in terms of, you know, where, and I don't want to get the crystal balls out just yet, but, you know, we're seeing some of these actually happening at the moment. What, from a planning partnership with venues, hotels, destinations, and of course, the convention bureaus, are you, number one, are you considering it? Number two, what are the questions that you've got for those who might be involved from a supply side? Start with you, Sharon.
Yes, so we are actually considering it. So for our February event next year, as I said, we will be having our ceremony and fundraiser online, planning for online, but having a hub in Brussels. But from 2023, one of the scenarios, even for 2022, that we proposed to our board was multi-hub. And they were super excited about it, but they just felt that in 2022, it's a little bit too early. So from 2023, we do plan to move to the multi-hub format. And I actually did see quite recently an initiative called the Hybrid City Alliance group. So it's different destinations that are clubbing together to provide, you know, you can send one RFP to one country and they split it and send it to the other. So as a planner, that's something that's a really interesting concept for me. In addition to that, I like the idea because if, for example, I were to contract with the same chain, it would give me more flexibility and perhaps disperse some of the risk. You know, if, for example, there was another outbreak in a certain city and it had to be very small, then maybe I could compensate by making one of the other ones a little bit bigger. So there's things like that we're considering for now in terms of the venues. And I think the other implication is that, you know, we plan with our long-term relations that we've had with the venue for this event for the last 10 years in Brussels to keep that and to always have that as our hub. But the other hubs, you know, we will not need like a convention bureau or center, sorry, it would be more maybe different types of venues, maybe more restaurants or meeting rooms, but smaller meeting rooms, or in a hotel, or, you know, so I think the type of venue might also be adapted a little bit.
Isn't it? It's super exciting at the moment. It's a really super exciting phase. You know, over the last 20 odd years, we've been beaming sessions out to hotels in different cities, and, you know, doing it offline, and bringing in different types of audience into those into those venues, but still connected to the main conference. But, you know, one of the drawbacks was technology, because, you know, how are you need somebody to organize it on that side. You still need somebody to organize it off-site, let's call it that. That's what we say, off-site. And then, you know, you need a team to be able to coordinate it. You needed technology, i.e. a technician or somebody there to manage it. now, you know, we have the possibilities of using the platforms like Zoom, like Teams, and you can just, you know, any person on the other end can connect, and as long as they've got a video camera or they've got a decent camera, they can, and a good microphone, they can do it themselves. That's the, you know, that's a possibility that's really opening up more and more. And then, like, you know, like Sharon says, you can go to any venue. It could be a restaurant, of course. It could be a restaurant. It could be, you know, you could host something. Now we're discussing about doing some practical sessions in hospitals, you know, and so that the team does not have to come to the conference center, and they can try it out themselves, watching it while it's going on in the venue itself. So the possibilities are completely endless, but still, you know, there are, if you're looking to do bigger events, multi-hub events, and then of course there is a cost issue in that, and then that's when it becomes much more difficult to do that. And then, you know, then the whole budgeting, are you cannibalizing your main event, all that sort of discussion then starts. But it's a really exciting time, you know, that that's one of the great things about things like crisis, like pandemics, because you're pushed into a situation, and you have to deal with it, and you have to come out with solutions. And these are the solutions that we are coming with, and we're moving forward. And
that whole thing about the opportunity, in terms of when you say trying to balance between taking something away from that main event, the opportunities that you have to expand your reach, which then is delegate sales, expand your reach for your sponsors, your exhibitors, which is the revenue. So I guess that's the exciting time to sort of start exploring that. As you said, do you think we would have got to this point? Would we have been having this conversation, Davi, without COVID? Or do you think we would never be having this conversation? And would we be having this conversation in 10 years' time?
It will be probably a bit longer, because, you know, one of the big changes is the technology, you know, and that's the big key driver that has been allowing us to do what we need to do. And so probably as that technology becomes more at the forefront and cheaper, you know, that would have taken another 5 years, say, before we would have got to that point. And we've been discussing these multi-hubs for quite a long time. It's not something that's new, but, you know, the cost has been the one that's, and the way to do it has been what's been impeding us. So
has it been easier to stick with what we know versus that now we're in a position where people have accepted immense change in how we meet, how we come together? So maybe our audiences are going to be a little forgiving for us, you know, trialing these new things, whereas multi-hub 2018, 2015, but we weren't doing this. That's the challenge, and also the resource, I suppose.
I want a couple of years ago, because we were discussing this, and I said, oh, it'd be great if the president stood up in the first opening session, said, right, we have Vienna calling, and, you know, we're having Hong Kong calling, or something like that, like the Eurovision sort of setup, you know, that kind of thing was, you know, and that's, but it was such a, at that time it was like, yeah, that would be great. Now it's not going to happen thing. But now, there is that possibility that, you know, we could be moving into that kind of area.
I think also the other opportunities that we chatted about as well in our preparation call for this were, you know, in terms of speakers, you know, before COVID, we were very hesitant to propose speaker training, kind of thinking that we would offend them for you know, assuming that they actually needed it. And that all changed, of course, online. And I think the next phase post pandemic is going to be training speakers more about, you know, hybrid audiences and how to speak into a camera maybe, and engage both with a physical and an online audience, or vice versa. And one of the learnings that we've definitely had over the last year or so is to really don't expect to have all the answers yourself, and to surround yourself with the right partners, the right experts. One big change for us has been scripting as well, not only the speaker training, but scripting, having professional facilitators, which is something we didn't systematically do before, but we will moving forward. And if it is in a hybrid format, then not only a physical MC for the group, you know, that are gathered together physically, but also a second one for the online. So yeah, I think as well, Davi, it's super exciting times. It's really a watershed moment, and, you know, never waste a crisis. No?
And I truly believe that what we will probably see is totally different sessions in a virtual setting to a face-to-face. Because, you know, in a virtual one, we will have to drive more engagement, because people are not going to spend ages in front of their screens, and, you know, the fatigue and things like that. So we will come with different types of sessions that mean they are involved. We already, as Sharon has already said, we are going for shorter presentations, and, you know, and more discussion in the session. So I think there is, you know, there will be a lot of innovation in the way that we do our meetings.
And I guess, as you said, that partnership element with venues, with destinations, the CVB, technology partners, you know, it's becoming, I mean, we've been talking about collaboration for years, you know, through industry events. You know, this has been again, I think the industry are very good at talking, and now we are acting. And I think that's where the shift, you know, the paradigm shift from the pandemic has been. In terms of these partners, we've got, you know, partners here. Those, I don't want to pin you down, but I do want to pin you down. What are those key considerations when you're now looking? I know we've got Lisbon. I know somebody has an event in Germany next year. What are those considerations now from the destination point of view that may have changed from 14 months ago? Sharon?
Yeah, so the changes we see are, of course, I think there needs to be greater flexibility and empathy on both sides. We need, this is the planner side of it, we need good templates. We need templates for our RPFs for digital platforms, for hybrid models. I don't think there's, you know, we're good as an industry at sharing and learning from each other. So maybe organizations or places where we could get, you know, good templates for those sorts of things. The other thing that we also recognize is coming back to the importance of partners, you know, we are thinking more long-term in terms of AV providers. So if there are venues that you have your assigned AV company, that could pose a problem in future, because, you know, we have these models now, this blended format that I said, and if we're using the same company over different events, that could be a problem for us in future. And then the other thing is, I think in general, we need to be replacing certainty of outcome with certainty of process. So as we're still emerging from the pandemic, I think we need to be, you know, setting dates from the get-go, reviewing the risk and the uncertainty, and, you know, ensuring that it's that continual kind of dialogue to mitigate risks on both sides. You know, I heard in an event, a conference that I attended, you know, if for social distancing reasons, we're only allowed half the number of attendees, does that mean that venues will only charge us half the amount up front? And then there'll be an incremental increase as we're, you know, able to open up. I mean, you know, it's controversial, but it's about the discussion, isn't it? Exactly. How does this model work? Because it's always been that whole challenge in terms of contracting and risk forever. I've been in venue world forever, but actually, what does this look like in terms of those agreed partnerships? What's the flexibility in terms of, well, shifting the spaces? And that can only come down to communication and partnerships, right? Exactly. And those long-term relations. Yeah. Davi, you're nodding avidly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Sharon. I totally agree. Flexibility is the key, you know, and if venues, destinations tie us in too much, you know, that's that will be a factor that we will look into in the future. We need that flexibility. It's not like that we don't want to come to the venue. We do want to come, but at the end of the day, the pandemic has shown us that we have to be vigilant and assess risks.
Exactly. I also think that the kind of the changing space, there's this upside down classroom model. So perhaps, ahead of an event, you could be engaging with a much bigger audience and preparing things. But then when you physically get together, you do the things that you can really only do in person, maybe around the more creative co-creation or brainstorming and things like that. And that means that the spaces that we need will be different. So I think in terms of venues as well, we need to be thinking about that, because you need a much bigger space for a co-creation or brainstorming session, but for fewer people, you see. So it's that ratio.
So how does that model work?
Exactly.
And interestingly, talking about bringing people, I think for years we've wanted to engage people before a meeting. We always talk about the whole, because in meeting design we talk about entering behavior and what change we want an event to bring, and then that exiting behavior, but that long-term relationship, especially in associations. So Carolyn has asked a really good question. Thank you, Carolyn, for this. The role of a platform now, whereas we've sort of jumped into them, we launched them on the day, whether it be Zoom or Hopin or whatever it might be, Sopcard. We're not owning any of these. I don't know if we've got any other suppliers on. If you have, brilliant. But, Carolyn's asked, she's interested in what you expect from a platform for a virtual or hybrid event. Is that going to change where the platform is actually that pre-hub where we get together, we pick up on a bit of content before we meet in person? What's that value of, I just saw one of the platforms sold for got investment of 75 million in the US. And so they aren't going away. What's important, and what are your considerations with these virtual platforms for virtual hybrid future meetings? Davi.
I think, it's going to be more important. I think we're going to see this seamless transition from what's going on in the face-to-face and how it looks on the virtual. We have technologies now where we can create 3D websites. So, that connection between what we're doing on site to what we're going to be doing online is going to be much more. So that people who are coming to the event feel like they are part of the Congress, regardless of whatever platform they are using. In terms of the technology, yes, I mean there are certain technologies which are not there yet. There are platforms that don't touch what we need in terms of what the speakers need, what the audience needs, what our sponsors needs are. One of the big things is whether exhibition and sponsorship virtually is a good thing or not. That's a discussion we're having. So we will have to go. Has technology moved? I keep talking about technology. It's driven by technology, and as technology starts to get bigger and better, and we are allowed to do much more online, you will see the events following, and those platforms providing much more than what they're doing at the moment.
Before I ask you this question, because Carolyn wanted to hear from you both, do you think that it's not just technology? Is it our getting used to the technology? So, for example, this is a great campaign that Germany and German Convention Bureau have with a 4-month campaign. So you can come and meet these exhibitors at your leisure. You're not time bound to be in that exhibition where you've already made 6 appointments with people you're contracting for. You can actually come in, you can meet people from Stuttgart or Düsseldorf, which you may or may not have had time to do at that in person. Build those relationships before the event. Do you see this as sort of, this could be the future, Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. You have to remember that the younger generation are tech savvy. which means, they're the TikTok generation. They're on Snapchat. They are really tech savvy, and their requirements as we move forward are going to be totally different to what we're doing now with our audiences now who are in their over 50s, 40s, or some, the doctors what we have now. So we will have to cater for a totally different audience, which has that requirement. Sorry.
No, it's really interesting. I think, well, for us, actually, we have a really interesting model. What we experienced last time, like last year for our conference, we learned a great deal from that experience. And for us in future, the platform is going to be, it needs to be customizable. The one that we worked with last year was not. We had to have everything go through that company. They uploaded the information, etc. But that is no good for us. We have to be able to access that. For example, we have signed an agreement with a platform for 1 year, of course, renewable after a year, and it's fully customizable. That means that, for example, in February of this year, when we ran our award ceremony, the day before, we had a high-level policy event, and that whole week we had a training for patient advocates. And what it meant was that we opened that platform for 1 full week. All of those different groups were able to communicate with each other, set one-to-one meetings if they wanted, which is something they wouldn't have been able to do. And we were able to customize, 1 page per event, adding on, different plugins based on what our needs were for that event, whether it be interpretation or subtitling. We had our social wall integrated, so all these different plugins. So making it as versatile as possible is really important for us. I think there's still a long way to go in terms of engagement as well with the audience. Yes, Davi.
I think the other thing, is the cost of the platform, because you see like the bigger societies doing these they have their wonderful studios, and they do all this lovely, fancy interviewing in the studio. Wow. And then, for us, like we are totally online. There is no studio. We're recording them, and we've gone for what's needed, what is necessary to provide a virtual event,
Exactly. And that's the whole beauty of this that we have. It is a fixed cost, which is actually relatively low, and it's offset over 3, 4, 5, 6 different events. So we're not paying every time for a new platform. So I think cost as well, is really
again important. The whole, to your point, Davi, that it, bells and whistles, I don't know if that translates across our audience. You don't always need the bells and whistles. It's about how you design for your audience, how you engage people. I've got clients who've ran 3-day conferences across Zoom. They've been completely interactive. One of the great things I think we've lost is that face-to-face is really important. We're talking about it. That's what we missed because of the pandemic. And a lot of these platforms have become faceless. And whilst for some content consumption, that's fine, broadcasting. But when we meet, that's what we want. We want that human connection. We want to be able to see people's faces, see the smile. If we're sitting in a mask in an audience in a venue, it's changing the dynamic. So actually the platform, these face-to-face opportunities in some of maybe not the such fancy ones, it's about your content, how you drive it for your audiences.
Exactly. And to Davi's point about technology, we haven't really talked about data, the data that can be generated from these platforms and from online, and how that can help to inform the format and future interactivity and things like that. I think that's a huge area that we'll be able to tap into more and more, and that I think we don't even realize the full potential for yet. So I think
world of AI, I think that will be another hour-long conversation. I'm quite conscious of time, believe it or not. We've got a couple of minutes left. We did have a final poll. I think I know the answer from you two. I will ask you after this, but can we just launch our final poll for our audience? Let's ask them. We're asking you. Are hybrid events here to stay? Will this become the new events? Just take the H word away. Is your answer yes, this is now the new normal? Or do you think just for a while, because we'll lose the virtual, because we'll all want to go back in a room? Or Do you actually completely disagree? No more virtual. We've had enough. If you can let us know, and if we can see the results, that would be wonderful. Any surprise there, Sharon and Davi?
No, as expected from me.
My final ask, and I don't like to ask the 60 seconds, but I want to say, you know, we're talking, there's a degree of positivity. I don't want to use any other word, but in terms of your planning, the association, what one word would you describe how you feel for the next couple of years of innovation? Sharon.
One word is hard, but honestly,
you can have
I'm
two.
Excited and optimistic.
Excited and optimistic. That is lovely. That's technically 3, unless you had an ampersand, but that's fine. Davi, you can have 3 words too.
Well, I'm very excited for the future, that's for sure. That's more than 3. But I'm really looking forward to going back to face-to-face. I am really looking back to being able to talk to somebody face-to-face, have the conversation in a venue and not through a screen. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I think that big raising a glass and actually being able to chink it with somebody else, to say cheers, to actually shake someone's hand. I think everybody in the audience will be feeling the same, and you can let us know. And on that note, let's hope the next time we have this discussion, we can be doing this all together somewhere wonderful in Germany. Sharon Ashton, Davi Kaur, thank you so much for your time today and your expertise on behalf of everybody in the audience and of course the GCB German Convention Bureau. Thank you, audience, for being here, carving some time out of your busy schedule. And a big thank you, of course, to all the partners of the GCB for supporting this campaign. Make sure you go and have a look. Whilst you're here in the GCB's beautiful virtual venue, have a look at the exhibition. Meet with some of the partners. It's as easy as that. At the moment, this is the way to do it. Find out what's new and how Germany has prepared for the new now, which I like that. That's a new one. I haven't used the new now. And to do that, to access the exhibition, please just click on the Summer Campaign Exhibition in the navigation menu. There is more education to come, so stay glued to this virtual venue. Join us for some upcoming sessions tomorrow and next week, where my colleague Claire will be in the moderator seat and will be hosting another incredible panel of experts from North America. You will not want to miss that. Keep safe. We look forward to seeing you soon. And yes, let's keep meeting. Take care. Bye-bye.